What would you do if your HOA called the cops on your family vineyard on your own land, and then, you found out they were hiding a scheme worth more than $20 million? Would you roll over, or would you make them choke on their own rulebook? I'm Mark Caldwell, and this is the morning everything snapped. Dawn slides over Solstice Valley like a soft blanket. Mist threads between the grape rows. Quiet as prayer. I'm out there, before the birds, before 5 a.m. Pruners clicking. Coffee steaming. Mind finally calm, for the first time in I don't know, months. Then I hear its sirens. Far off at first, and then growing like a storm you can smell before it hits. Radios crackle. Boots crunch leaves. And there she stands at the property line, Karen Hartwell, president of the Solstice Heights HOA, smiling like she just won the lottery with somebody else's ticket. She's filming on her phone. Nails lacquered. Hair helmeted. Perfume cutting through the earthy smell of wet soil. The cops step onto my gravel drive like they're entering a crime scene. Karen lifts her chin and announces, "For the record." Of course she does. You know the type. If you've ever paid monthly dues just to be told you can't park in your own driveway, you get it? You feel this in your bones. Quick rewind, so this makes sense. 3 years ago, I wore tailored suits that cost more than my truck. Billed $400 an hour in San Francisco real estate law. And pretended that meant I was winning. Then, my marriage cratered. Spectacularly. Turns out my ex preferred my law partner. Paperwork and heartbreak will hollow a man out faster than any drought. The settlement. Let's just say the cash left the account like water down a busted canal. So I came home to the valley and the creaky farmhouse where the floorboards talk back and the wind hums through the eaves. My grandfather planted these vines back in 1962. Back when neighbors waved with their whole hand. Not one finger. 40 acres of Cabernet, Pinot, and stubborn family pride. The irrigation system dated to, I swear, the Carter era. The tractors were older than disco, but it was ours. It smelled like second chances. Then the McMansions arrived. Beige fortresses. Copy-pasted. With fake carriage lights and lawns that drink more water than a football team. Solstice Heights popped up on our eastern ridge like, suburban crabgrass. And at the top of that HOA pyramid, Karen. Perfect teeth, perfect posture, perfect belief that rules are holy scripture, especially when she's the one holding the hymnal. It started with a fence. A simple, 6-foot agricultural fence to keep deer out, and lost wedding guests from wandering into the county road. I'm tamping a post into the dirt when a white SUV door slams like a gavel. Karen marches over in a power suit and heels. Clipboard tucked like a badge. That fencing, she says, violates our community aesthetic standards. Ma'am, I tell her, leaning on the shovel. This is a working farm, older than your subdivision. Your HOA rules stop at your property line. She smiles, a tight little smile. Residential neighborhoods have standards. Mr. Caldwell, you'll be hearing from us. 2 days later, certified letter. Thick as a Bible. Cease and desist. Threat of $500 per day in fines. Claims my vineyard violates residential zoning. Copies to the county, the bank, and, for flair, the local newspaper. Not a complaint, a coordinated strike. What Karen didn't know, what most folks didn't, is that I'd spent 15 years on the other side of this chessboard. I know where the edges are. My grandfather's deed includes agricultural protections, perpetual farming rights, that outrank HOA wish lists. So I call my old friend, Jake Morrison, an environmental attorney with a spine like rebar. He laughs and says, "Buddy, somebody just poked a sleeping bear." I pour coffee, rub my German Shepherd's ears, barrel. Best foreman I ever hired, and pull the old files. Dusty folders, yellowed paper, the whole family history of this dirt. And there it is in black and white, the language that says, permanently, this land grows food. Period. County inspector shows up that week. Good guy. Name's Rodriguez. Clipboard and boots. Apologetic smile. Anonymous tip about unpermitted structures. He says, "Anonymous." Right. He walks the property for hours. Checks the barn from 1965. The equipment shed from 1998. Even the root cellar with the fieldstone steps. All clear. He signs off. Tells me the agricultural exemption is ironclad. And this part matters. He says it like he already knows how HOA games get played. But Karen, she doubles down. Emergency board meeting. Community beautification standards. Slide deck with stock photos of picket fences and smiling labradoodles. She pass around a petition about commercial blight and property values. And look, I ain't trying to be mean, but the nodding from the board could have powered a small wind farm. Then, something beautiful happens. Old-timers stand up, folks, who've seen harvest dust and tasted first press juice. Mrs. Patterson. Retired teacher. Voice steady as church bells. His vines were here before your cul-de-sacs. The room shifts. Karen's smile cracks. The meeting adjourns with further review. Which is HOA, for we didn't win yet. Out in the parking lot, I spot a slick briefcase guy, whispering with Karen. Expensive shoes. Billing by the minute. Fine. If she wants to play legal chicken, I've still got my license and nothing to lose. Karen's next tactic is the social smear. A Facebook group, Concerned Neighbors of Solstice Valley, pops up overnight. Angled photos make my tractor look like a rusted war machine. Posts hint at late-night deliveries and mysterious chemicals. People who once waved at the farm stand start staring through me like I'm glass. Even the bank gets skittish sudden requests for additional documentation. Smiles that don't reach the eyes. So I research. Because, when someone's trying to sink your boat, you better know what's punching holes in the hull. Public records, land deals, permits, and a pattern emerges like tracks in fresh snow. Karen's husband, Preston Hartwell developer, owns chunks of the valley. Has 2 more projects queued up. And he's been sniffing around farm parcels for years. The math is ugly. Acres worth $8,000, as farmland become $50,000 when the zoning flips. My 40 acres, a jackpot if they can push me out. That's when I hire a surveyor and order a title search so deep it hits 19th century paper. The results land like fireworks. A strip 50 feet of my land runs straight behind 3 HOA backyards. My grandfather granted temporary construction access back when Solstice Heights went up. But he never sold the dirt. Classic farmer move, rent the right. Keep the land. Oh, and there's a utility easement protecting my access across the whole development. Roads. Water. Power. In plain English, they can't box me in. Karen, to her credit, Does not take humiliation well. She puts on a safety town hall. Brings petitions with signatures that look suspiciously similar. Talks about drunk wedding guests and fire hazards. I sit in back and let her perform. The more she talks, the more it sounds like panic dressed in pearls. Then the big envelope arrives. Fancy letterhead. Threat level theatrical. A cease and desist from Hartwell. Morgan and Associates, no relation to my buddy Jake, ordering me to shut down nuisance operations within 72 hours, or face a blizzard of lawsuits. 12 code violations listed like a grocery receipt. Every one of them wrong. It's intimidation. Pure and simple. The kind that usually works on regular folks who don't have the cash or the time to fight. My bank account says Taco Bell is a splurge. But my brain remembers every trick I ever learned. That night, I'm in the courthouse basement with a thermos and a flashlight because the record system, I swear, got stuck in the 70s. I read till the pages blur, and then pay dirt. Back in 1987, the state-designated Solstice Valley, a historic agricultural district, not a feel-good plaque, real teeth. Any development within 2 miles of heritage vineyards requires full environmental impact studies. Guess how many Preston filed 0? Guess how many houses went up anyway? Too many. If you're thinking, that sounds like fraud. Yeah. In my opinion, it walks and quacks. From there, the harassment turns criminal. Someone slices my main irrigation line. Thousands of gallons bleed into the soil. Wedding clients get anonymous calls about contamination. Fake reviews appear online, claiming food poisoning. Lawsuits. Chaos. I document everything. Cameras. Logs. Screenshots. Jake moves for a restraining order against HOA interference with agricultural activity. And the judge, bless her patience, signs it. 18 pages that basically tell Karen to sit down and hush. Meanwhile, I pull a thread in the HOA books, and out comes a whole sweater. Payments to shell contractors. Legal invoices routed in odd ways. The kind of accounting that makes auditors reach for strong coffee. Then Ethel, saint of the courthouse, has been filing longer than some of us been alive, slides a grimy folder across the counter with a wink. Been in the wrong drawer for decades, she says. Inside, the original Heritage District, maps, the legal memos, the notices that should have stopped Preston before he ever poured a slab. It's all there. That's the moment I realize this isn't just about my fence or my grapes. It's a pattern. Families pressured, fast sales, permits expedited, and, to my ear, a chorus of laws broken so loud you can dance to it. So, we build a team. Jake handles the filings, the injunctions, the letters that say, in calm lawyer font, "We see you." Dr. Sarah Bennett, soil scientist, shows up with core samples and charts you can read from the cheap seats. Father Miguel from St. Agnes, who's been organizing farm workers for a decade, brings the community voices the HOA can't wave away. We set cameras, backup drives, and collect statements. We meet in my barn every Thursday, long table, thermoses of coffee, the smell of hay and oil, and a whiteboard that fills up with arrows and deadlines. Barrel guards the door like he drew the short straw. Ethel calls when Preston pulls new records. Miguel spreads word that this fight ain't just one family's problem. And me, I start to breathe again. I mean, this is what I was built to do. Take bullies' paperwork and turn it into their undoing. When the threats don't work, the bribes try. Preston shows up one foggy morning. Briefcase sweating as hard as he is. Generous settlement. He says, $4 million. 48 hours to accept. He calls it a win-win. I call it evidence and let the recorder in my pocket keep humming. Because Surprise Inspector Rodriguez isn't just county. He's federal. And he's been watching this mess unfold with a notebook full of questions. Karen's social media starts to read like late-night radio. Wild claims. Toxic wine. IRS seizures. Outside agitators. Even her faithful begin to step back. The bank freezes Preston's draws. His crews walk. His suppliers want cash. The gloss peels off fast when the heat hits. Jake proposes mediation, a public one, so everyone can calm down. The town says yes. The local station sends a camera. Neighbors pack the hall because nothing says Friday night in a small town like a good, clean, righteous fight. The town hall smells like old carpet cleaner and civic duty. Mediator Judge Patricia Wells gavels us in. Karen centers herself in the front row like a pageant queen who already knows where the crown's going. Preston has two lawyers bookending him like human parentheses. Karen goes first. Of course. She talks about harmony, rules, and how one man's commercial operation has destroyed the neighborhood's peace. She waves a stack of petitions, I swear. Same handwriting on half the pages and calls for my removal. Preston plays good cop. Compromise. He says, fair market value. He offers to purchase the vineyard so we can all move forward. If I weren't so mad, I'd almost be impressed by the gall. I stand. I thank the room. I talk slowly about the district's history. About perpetual farming rights written before most of us were born. I display the survey showing the HOA yards nibbling my land like a snack. I show Dr. Bennett's slides of soil and water tables. I trace the path of unchecked runoff from graded lots right into the creek that used to run clear every spring. Then, I walk them through the heritage designation from 1987 requiring impact studies within 2 miles of heritage vines. I hold up the file of missing studies and stamped approvals anyway. And I say, because it needs saying, that in my opinion, what happened here looks like fraud tied up with a bow. The room shifts. A murmur rises like wind through leaves. I take a breath and add one last thing. The State Attorney General opened a formal review 6 months ago. Federal investigators have been interviewing witnesses. Some of them are in this room. Heads turn toward the back as badges glint. Rodriguez steps forward with marshals. Warrants come out like theater programs. Karen's jaw goes slack. Preston's lawyers start talking about rights and processes while the cameras do what cameras do. The handcuffs click. And the sound is quiet. Final. Like a gate shutting after a long, loud storm. 6 months pass. Harvest comes. Courtrooms fill. In open court. A judge says the scheme exploited families and the land they love. Which, look, is a polite way of saying what we all felt this was theft with landscaping. Preston gets years. Karen, months. Plus, the kind of public shame that sticks to your shoes. The HOA dissolves under the weight of its own paperwork and the smoke from its burned credibility. The state redraws the heritage boundary, so it actually protects what it says it protects. Those illegal houses condemned, then leveled. In their place, riparian buffers, wildlife corridors, and a park where, on Saturdays, kids run between new oak saplings and ask questions about owls. Me, I rename the label to Justice Valley Wine because, I'm not subtle. The phone won't stop ringing. Tastings, weddings, school tours. I build a scholarship fund for ag students. Father Miguel helps start a co-op for small growers. Ethel Legend starts drafting a book called Filing Cabinets and Felons. She'll sell out her first printing at the Harvest Festival. Mark my words. And Sarah, the scientist who could out-argue a weather front, gives the farmhouse a second heartbeat. We plant a test plot for drought-resistant rootstock and teach workshops on soil health under string lights. Barrel gets a rescue partner named Justice, who believes squirrels are an organized threat. But let's not pretend the fight's over. Calls come in from Oregon, Texas, Vermont. Same story with different zip codes. Developers using HOAs like battering rams. Families who don't know their rights getting bullied into signing away roots that go back generations. The playbook is copy-paste. So we write a new one. Hotlines. Templates. A traveling clinic that parks under fairground grandstands and translates law into plain English. Because the secret I learned, the thing I wish I'd known sooner, is that bullies count on your confusion. They weaponize your panic. They bank on you not keeping records, not reading deeds, not asking the clerk who's seen it all. When you do those things, when you stand shoulder to shoulder with your neighbors and say, kindly, no, well, suddenly the rules start looking a lot less holy. Okay. Back to the fun part, the day the sirens came to my vines. The officers were decent, professional. They asked questions. They walked the property. Karen narrated into her phone like she was on a reality show. I answered plain, not performative. These are agricultural structures. That fence line predates your streets. Here's the escrow record from my grandfather's loan. When one officer chuckled at the root cellar steps, I said, Fieldstone, 1965. Built to last longer than any HOA bylaw. He tried not to smile. At the end, Rodriguez, you know, wearing the county hat that day, said, looks good here, Mr. Caldwell. Karen sputtered. He's bluffing. She hissed to the cameras. This isn't over. But it kinda was. Not because of me. Because the truth was heavier than her story. After they left, I stood in the mist with my coffee going cold and my heart beating like a drumline. Varro leaned against my leg. All fur and faith. I looked down the rows at the dew lifting off the leaves. And I promised my grandfather out loud, yeah. I talk to ghosts. Sometimes I'm not selling. Not for convenience. Not for fear. Not for a check with enough zeros to buy a yacht. I meant it. Human moment, 'cause I'm still a person under all this. The nights were rough in that stretch. Sleep turned to gravel. Every headlight on the road made my shoulders jump. I got short with folks who didn't deserve it. Sarah, called me out with the kindness of a person who can read soil and people. She put a hand on my chest and said, breathe from here, not from your fists. I listened, slowly. We made rituals. Sunset walks down the lower terrace. Coffee on the porch before the world could grab us. A rule that arguments had to pause under the walnut tree because you shouldn't fight under a tree older than your grandparents. Might sound silly, but sometimes you need rules that heal, not hurt. You asked for the messy middle, the part where it felt like losing, even though we were winning on paper. Karen's crew left a dead fish at the gate one morning. The stink clung to the gravel like a curse. We cleaned it up, logged it, sent the video to Jake, and moved on. Anonymous calls tried to scare off our brides. Unsafe venue, they whispered. Chemical spills. One reception bailed. Then another. It hurt like a punch, because those aren't just line items, that's people and promises and vendors who count on us. We called every client, offered tours of the lab, sent water tests, walked them through the vines so they could smell the truth for themselves. Most stayed, some didn't. We refunded with a smile, because you don't buy loyalty by arguing, you earn it by being decent in a storm. Friends, real ones, came out of the woodwork. The Pattersons showed up with casseroles and folding chairs. The hardware store guy Bill apologized with a discount and a handshake that said he'd gotten spooked by rumors. I told him, we're good. Because a community is a muscle, you use it, or it atrophies. Jake's TRO temporary restraining order might as well have been written in neon. It told the HOA to back off agricultural activity. Period. Karen broke it within. Like 48 hours. We didn't gloat. We documented. Judges don't love drama, they love receipts. Sarah's report was the opposite of drama sober. Detailed. Clear. It showed, in gentle science, exactly how illegal grading sent sediment into the creek. How underbuilt septic fields could contaminate groundwater. How wildlife corridors got pinched until fawns had nowhere safe to cross. She never used the word villain. She didn't need to. The facts did the talking. Miguel gathered farmers in our barn. The stories lined up like fence posts. Pressured sales. Surprise code visits right before harvest. Offers that expired tomorrow. Folks who signed because they were tired. Not because it was right. We hugged shoulders and passed pens across forms that said, in effect, we're done being quiet. Now, because y'all always ask, did I want revenge? Sure. I'm human. But what I really wanted was protection, something bigger than my own fences. That's why we pushed for the expanded heritage overlay with teeth and timelines. That's why we put our settlement money into scholarships and soil labs instead of just new tractors. I wanted the next kid who inherits a dusty barn and a stack of bills to feel like they aren't alone, that the law is a ladder, not a weapon aimed at their head. The day the AG's office called to say charges were filed, I was topping barrels in the crush pad, sticky with juice and grinning like a fool. Barrel, in a coincidence that never stops being funny, sneezed at the exact moment the assistant AG said racketeering. I said, bless you. He thought I meant him. We both laughed. Little cracks of joy matter when life's been one long wince. Reporters came. We told the story without gloating. Karen's name became shorthand for the kind of HOA politics that forget people have lives beyond paint swatches. Some folks defended her, said she believed she was protecting property values. Maybe. People believe a lot of things when fear gets the wheel. What changed me most wasn't the courtroom or the cameras. It was one afternoon during harvest when a kid from down the road, Miguel's nephew, asked if grapes make the soil purple. I said no. But I crouched and showed him how the skins stain your fingers. How yeast makes magic from sugar. And how patience turns chaos into something worth sharing. He nodded, like this was a secret worth keeping. Maybe that's the whole point, teaching the next hands how to hold what matters without crushing it. Let me rewind to a choice I almost made. Thank God. Didn't. Before the big reveal, when my checking account was wheezing and the cancellations stacked up, I almost sold the back 20 acres. Just the scrubby slope. I told myself, keep the terraces. Keep the view. Take the cash. Quiet the noise. I even stood at the fence line with a pen in my pocket, waiting for Preston, feeling the weight of tired bones and late notices. Then Barrel barked at a hawk shadow sliding over the vines, and something in my skull clicked like a clean gear shift. My grandfather survived drought and frost. He lost a finger to an auger and still pruned by moonlight. He didn't keep this place so I could be the man who flinched. I put the pen away. I went back to the barn. I called Jake and said, "No sale. Full send." He said, "Atta boy." And I think he might have fist pumped in an office where you're not supposed to. If you're there at that fence line, pen heavy in your pocket, hear me tired isn't the same as done. You can rest without surrendering the deed. We poured the first vintage under the new label at the Harvest Festival. The bottle said Justice Valley. And under it, a small line, for the people who keep the land. Folks cried, "I ain't making that up." They drank and danced and told stories about grandparents who could split a cord of wood before lunch and still help a neighbor move a piano after supper. Karen didn't come. I don't say that to be cruel. It's just the truth. Sometimes the hardest part of being wrong is walking past the people you hurt while they build something you tried to break. I hope, honest, that she finds a way to make amends that isn't just posting a Notes app apology. People can change. Land can heal. It just takes longer than we want. The park where the illegal houses stood is scruffy and perfect. Teens ride boards along a path that used to be a driveway. Quail stitch through coyote brush. In spring, the creek runs muddy for a minute and then clears like a conscience. We planted oaks along the ridge, and Sarah made the little ones promise hand on heart to come back in 20 years and say hello. Ethel cut the ribbon with a pair of scissors older than me. She winked and said, "File that." "Honey," I did in my chest. This is the part where a YouTube script is supposed to hit you with the big CTA. And yeah, I've got one. But first, let me say this plain. If your HOA has you by the throat, document everything. Keep your cool on camera. Learn your county clerk's name. Ask for help before you think you deserve it. You do. Alright, here it is. Imagine paying thousands in dues just to be told the tomatoes in your backyard are unsightly. Imagine a letter that turns your porch swing into a compliance issue. Now, imagine discovering the folks lecturing you about rules were breaking the law with both hands. What would you do? Fold or fight kind? Steady. Together. Tell me down in the comments. Share where you're watching from. And if you've got a horror story, oof, lay it on us. Your voice might be the rope someone else needs to climb out. Sunset warms the vines until they glow from the inside. Barrel and Justice chase what I swear are imaginary enemies. Sarah holds a soil core up to the light and grins like she can see the future in it. The air smells like dust and fruit, and that little spark you get when a storm has passed, but the world hasn't quite admitted it yet. I stand at the head of the rows and breathe from my chest, not my fists, and I say, to anyone who needs to hear it, you are not the HOA's property. Your porch is not their throne. Your dignity ain't up for a vote. Keep your receipts. Keep your neighbors close. Keep your humor, 'cause laughter is a weapon they can't regulate. We'll keep telling these stories. We'll keep standing shoulder to shoulder. And when the next Karen points a phone at the next farm, she'll see something she didn't expect in the frame, a whole community. Steady as a fence post, saying, politely and forever, No. Anyone else had a HOA do this to you, what would you do here?